Hello, CyberMaster fans. Welcome to September 2023. We have an exciting show today. We brought back our audio-video expert from Exertis Almo. If you've watched the show, you've seen him before. He's our resident specialist on all things for the conference room and audio-video. Really happy to bring him back. There's a big event coming up that you may want to hear about or even participate in if you think about professional audio video for your business or even for your high-end home. Let me reintroduce our special guest, Eric Olson. How are you? Welcome back to the show today.
I'm great.
Thanks for joining us, and looking forward to hearing about the big show that's coming up, I think in a week, you've told us.
Yeah, well, I want to thank you for having me on yet again. I love this ability to be able to join your podcast, and I find that it always seems to coincide when we have a major event coming up in one of the regions around the States.
Excellent. Yeah, no, thank you. I love this technology. You know that AV and video and internet, and technology, TCP/IP, it's all converging. So the convergence of what's happening on the network and AV getting together really simplifies things for users, right? You've seen conference rooms where people walk in, things aren't set up, it's not working. There's a frustration to get things started. Well, what do you think? What are you guys doing about making it easier to jump on conference calls without that annoying 20-minute, half-hour setup sometimes, right?
No, you're right. A lot of times, so the conference room space is always evolving. So there are solutions that have happened in the past that were a little kludgy in terms of setting things up. What's happened is you're finding the conference room ecosystem is now being more streamlined towards some of the major platforms, and you're going to see that with there's Zoom, Google Meet, and Microsoft Teams are really
They're
kind of
still
running
the
the way.
only big players in the industry.
They're the
Those,
largest players right now, and what's critical about it is the hardware manufacturers are developing equipment around those solutions, and those that are certified for those platforms are going to be the clear winners when it comes to projects and opportunities. And I'm talking everything from corporate enterprise to higher education, pretty much any vertical market you can think of that utilizes a software or soft codec collaboration tool. You're going to find that you're going to see Teams, Zoom, and Google Meet to be the predominant players. So,
is there anything left in the industry that is not digital at this point? Is there any analog left that doesn't have software? And I want to make a relationship with this after you answer.
well, one of the only things I can think about that's still analog in some senses is you may have an audio breakout as part of the solution where you would push it over to your sound reinforcement or your audio system.
An audio breakout, well, like
Yeah,
a
like
hub or
just
a
basic,
receiver.
just like a cable, an audio cable that would go to your left and right speakers or any type of, or to your amplifier. That's about the only thing analog left. Right now, everything is going to be network switches, touch panels, and basically a mini PC in the room that's operating these platforms. So everything is really going to be streamlined to the network.
Really? Oh, that's interesting. So, really, are the AV guys all going to have to learn networking, or the vice versa? Will the networking guys have to learn the AV stuff? Who's getting the opportunity?
I love that question because I've been tasked for a while now, since 2015 when I joined the company, was handling networked AV. And what I find that is that the adoption rate for IT was a challenge for a lot of pro AV dealers, integrators, and resellers. Why? Because AV is not IT and it's a completely different language. So there was always that kind of fear of becoming involved in the network. So they would always defer to the network administrator and any kind of director of IT if a project required a network connection. Now you're finding AV companies are hiring IT professionals on staff, and what happens is hardware companies are making products easier to implement and configure without having an IT guy on your staff.
That's
So
interesting. So, are IT guys who are working in the AV industry being paid more or less? How does that work? Because I imagine that if you have IT expertise
Mhm.
and you're looking for a job, perhaps the AV market is perfect to
Yeah.
sort of find even a higher paying job because you're more sought after.
Your skills are in high demand, for sure. Everything in the way of the future is AV over IP. Audio and video are going to be packetized currently, and the equipment,
Packetized.
yeah, packetized. So
Is that
basically,
official packetized? Well, I
well,
guess so, right? You're
yeah,
sending packets of data
over
as
and over.
opposed to analog signals, right?
Exactly. You're taking audio and video signals, you're breaking them down into packets, and you're sending them across a network. And that is not only going to be, as I've said before in the past, it's not going to be a nice to know, it's going to be a have to know. As resolutions and bandwidth requirements go up for audio and video, the only thing that's going to be able to support that in the future is going to be a category or a fiber cable. And that
A
needs
data cable.
exactly. So as it stands now, you're going to see things like 8K and 16K coming out, and that's going to push the limits of what your current audio video capable equipment can do, and you're going to have to start looking at networked AV.
Interesting. Now I've seen 24K and higher. What's that all about?
You're going to see resolutions that are going to exceed the current industry's capability to keep up with that equipment. Right now, what I'm seeing right now is 4K is standard. Everybody has a 4K TV in their home and most of their businesses. Right now, you're seeing the 8K stuff coming out. So you're not really getting into that other category of, like you mentioned, 24K. That I haven't seen. I've seen as high as 16K. But of course, the technologies are always rapidly advancing before the market can take a hold of it, where it's also cost effective.
Now, have you seen these screens that are bendable,
Oh,
that
yeah.
bend around a thing and the whole thing looks like it's in space? What's that all about?
That is so cool. Yes, so a number of display manufacturers make flexible displays. Something that also is similar to that is, you guys have seen video walls, and whether it's a conference room or whether it's a corporate lobby, or even if you go down to the airport, you'll see video wall displays. The way they do it now is instead of making flexible displays, they're making a modular, and they're using things called direct view LED, and they're basically little
Direct view LED, that's different than standard LED.
I've mentioned
I know
it. Yeah,
mentioned it last time. We talked about it.
it is an
It
emerging.
confused me a little bit, to be honest.
Yeah, it's an emerging technology. When you think of LED, a lot of people think I already have an LED TV. This is different. These are the LEDs are actually on a board level, and they're spaced apart in a specific, how many. I don't want to say too much into technology stuff, but they basically have a pixel pitch, and sometimes they're very close together, and sometimes they're a little further away. And it depends on how far the viewer is, and it depends also if it's going to be an outdoor or an indoor viewing.
So the
environment.
pixels alter based on where the viewer's standing? How does that work?
Well, actually, the image, believe it or not, when you get very close to a DV-LED product, you can see the individual pictures or
Yes.
pixels are actually placed on the board level. But as you get further apart, that image blends because the human eye allows you to accommodate that blending of color and light and everything where you see a complete image. Now, you're going to see more DV-LED indoor stuff because the brightness and the longevity is unparalleled, as well as but the cost
Is it
is still
something
pretty high.
consumers can buy, or it's only commercial
could.
at this point?
You could. Right now, the price point really kind of commands the commercial market. It's a commercial. It requires a proper design, as with any project. But really, you have to be very careful with the electrical and thermal requirements for these type of products because of the heat dissipation as well as the power required to really make a customizable LED wall in any fashion or size or shape that you can even imagine. And you can
No, that's a
cover
big deal.
curves.
The setup and the heat. Now,
Mhm.
we don't want to burn buildings down. Now, I know a lot of guys who say, I'm the AV guy, I'm the IT guy, I'll put this in myself. Well, can you talk about why you really want this latest stuff to be put in by a professional? You know what I mean?
Yes. Truly, the experience could be the difference between success and a complete failure. You're really going to want somebody in there remember, audio video guys are also trained in the safety of implementing these types of products. Do you really want to trust a very heavy display to be affixed to a wall and potentially become a safety hazard? So, but one of the beautiful parts of that is that being a turnkey distributor, the largest Pro AV distributor in the country, we have a professional services division as well that handles anything from installations of DVD LED products, where we partnered with manufacturers and have turnkey solutions, but we also can handle configuration, programming, and commissioning systems. So Exertis Almo offers the full boat when it comes to a DV LED solution, not only just procuring product, but the services that go along with it.
So hold on, Eric. You're talking a lot of heavy duty tech stuff here, but what's the upcoming event? I really want to know about this. So you're talking about it. Can I touch and feel this stuff? Tell me what's really going on.
Yeah, who wants to listen to me talk about it when you can experience it, see it,
I like it. I like it, but you got to be
in
real
person.
techie, you know, and you don't
Yeah.
have to be a techie to enjoy the show, right?
No, and that's exactly why when I was saying earlier that a lot of the times I have an appearance on your show, it coincides with one of the major events. Now, we have an industry award-winning event that is known as the E4 Experience. We go around the country in 4 separate regions throughout the year, every single year. We have 2 in the spring, 2 in the fall, and the fall program is about to come up. We offer next week on September 20th.
September 20th?
September 20th, the New York metro area. We're going to have in New York, New Jersey. It's going to be located at the Teaneck Marriott in Teaneck, New Jersey.
Teaneck, New Jersey. Can you
Yep.
pull that up for us on our iPad?
Sure. Let me just bring
Here
this
we
up right
go.
here.
Let's take a look here. Our iPad view.
Yep. So this is the E4 Experience. If you haven't, if you want to check it out for yourself, I'll spell it out. It's E, the number 4, and the word experience, all one word, .com. You can actually find out about the event, what is involved in it. You see all the latest technologies. It's a one-day event. We have a lot of sessions that are actually certification approved. You can, our industry certification is known as the CTS through Avixa.
CTS?
Yep, Certified Technology Specialist, which I have also achieved, and it allows me to renew my certification every 3 years, and there's a minimum of 30 credits. You can pick up a bunch of them at these events. It's a very widely respected certification that shows that you're an integral player in the Pro AV industry.
So how do you get the certification at the event? How does that
Oh, you don't get it at the event, but you can get the RUs, which are the recurring education units that are required. So every 3 years you need 30 credits. What better way to do them than check out some gear, sit in on one of our sessions that we have, and we have some great sessions. We cover everything from basics of how to build a rack or power and grounding, or even some of the basic concepts that I talked about. But what's even better is you get to go behind the scenes to the manufacturer who's exhibiting the product that we're talking about, and you can look, see, feel, touch, and you can actually see how it's operated and all connected. And
Now,
that's
this is
why
for dealers only? Who comes? Who comes?
this actually event, although Exertis Almo only sells to dealers, integrators, and resellers, this event is open to even end users. We want the local
Yeah,
universities
pains
to
in
come
the
by.
asses like me who want to see all the details. No, is that what
Not at
you're
all.
talking about?
Well, no, I wouldn't say that. I'm talking more about the consultants, the universities, corporations that want to come by and are investigating some new technologies that they want to roll out in their office spaces. Some of the schools are. A lot of universities come by before they actually will deploy or purchase a product and start rolling it out through multiple classrooms. And you can imagine how many classrooms are involved in those types of projects.
Sure, and I gotta say that makes a lot of sense, right? You gotta imagine if you're working for a school or you're an IT administrator or AV administrator, you see your environment only. You don't see everything that's out there. I imagine that the school officials and others who manage their own network, if you will, their environment, this is where they gain all their information, right?
Yeah, we have a lot of people coming by to this because a lot of times, like you said, a lot of these IT guys come from it's a separate industry, and they're not privy to all of the commercial electronics that are available for these spaces. Like you said, it's a challenge when you have Pro AV integrators who are doing a lot of the stuff that Datacom guys are doing. So you're seeing quite a mix now of Datacom guys dipping their toe into the Pro AV space, and now they're getting into digital signage and conference room spaces and setting up soft codec platforms, in addition to all the other Datacom networking and rack needs that they have.
So just to offshoot a little bit, I'm watching this commercial. I think I see you in it. Am I wrong? Are you in this commercial here running in the background?
I sure am. There I am.
All right, I thought that was you. I'm like, is there other guys who look like Eric Olson, our BDM friend? So,
A bald
all right,
guy
so
with a
where was
goatee.
that? What show was that? What state were you in for that one?
Okay, I believe this was at the Chicago show that we hosted in the Midwest, and I am actually meeting with one of our industry superstars. She's known as Alicia Henley.
Alicia Henley.
Yep,
Okay.
and she works for Audinate, and has worked in the networked AV field for a while, and she's got a lot of experience, and she hosts a program as well that is strictly for Pro AV. So she's a big player in the industry, as well as Gary Kay. He's one of our keynote speakers, and he's known as one of the AV. He's one of the big AV talking heads that are in our industry that can help people move to products and make them aware of hardware that exists and solutions out there.
Wow, I don't know. I've been to a lot of trade shows, but this sounds awful cool. Now,
Yes.
I'm going to the next E4, so I'm really excited.
I finally got you.
I'm going. I mean, I promise I won't ask too many questions.
Ask all that you can.
But for me to get one of those displays that I can put around display, I mean, I see that in my future. I hope my wife's not watching this. But yes, honey, in the future will be one of these really cool rounded displays I can put around anything, right? It's bendable. That's crazy.
I've seen that years ago, back in probably 2017. I was at a major display manufacturer that everybody knows their name, and I was actually in their business innovation center and saw flexible displays that were probably 6 years ago when they just started coming out with the concept of that, and it was mind-blowing. I mean, thinner than a credit card and flexible. There was a gentleman that pulled a 18-inch display out of his backpack and rolled it across the table for people
Wow,
to check
that's
out.
sick.
And,
Now, I
it was
remember the
impressive.
displays that came out, they were pieces of glass and they were like a monitor.
Mhm.
How come that technology didn't, I saw that 20 years ago. How come that didn't take off yet?
It's hard to say sometimes why some products have a lower adoption rate. It could have had anything to do with the technology, the price point. It could have just had just simple demand, or supply and demand, or even pricing and demand. Sometimes the newer product does command a higher price, which becomes cost prohibitive if somebody wants to implement for the masses. Being involved in the technology industry, you're always going to see the latest and greatest stuff, and sometimes it catches hold. Sometimes it goes to the wayside.
Sometimes you can't do it. Take us a little bit more through the website. Tell us about the company again.
Okay.
If people have watched the show, they've seen and heard some really interesting stuff about how this company is developing extremely. So Exertis Almo became one brand about 2 years ago or so.
Yeah. We were acquired. We were Almo Professional AV. We were acquired by Exertis Almo. We are combined with Stampede Presentation Products, and we are now the largest Pro AV distributor in North America. What that does
The
is,
largest Pro AV distributor in America today.
in North America, yeah. This is a big deal because if you think about it, Pro AV, a lot of people don't know really much about Pro AV. They figure it's just electronics, displays, and things like that. But professional audiovisual is actually expected to have a massive amount of money pumped into it over the next few years. They're estimating hundreds of billions of dollars, because if you think about how important visual images and audio are as part of a solution, you're realizing that it's tied to almost everything. Whether you're meeting in a conference space, or you're going to a casino or a hotel and you're seeing videos on a wall, or a sports betting location, or even a bar restaurant, audio video done properly usually is done by a qualified integrator and dealer of these types of products that have experience.
And you guys have tons of partnerships with professionals, and do the install and can do soup to nuts, the whole
100%.
9 yards.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things that we've been working on for years. It's one thing to sell the boxes, but what happens if nobody has the capability to deploy it and properly commission the system? And that's where we step in with our professional services group. It's been a fantastic ride. We can do anything from hang a TV to a projector to doing a full audio system, infrastructure cabling, rack building and fabrication, a lot of different control systems that are integrated into these spaces. When you see a touch panel in a room, it requires line code sometimes, or another complicated form of programming. This is not something that is
These
easy.
are not all graphic user interfaces. Some of them require a line coding.
Actually, some of them do require line code similar to like C+. What I will say is that other manufacturers pay attention to that, and they try to facilitate an easier avenue to have dealers be able to do it without becoming a programmer. Configuration-based systems that are drag and drop are becoming very popular. One of those one of those companies that I think I've talked about them in the past is Atlona, and Atlona is a direct competitor to a lot of the what we call the Trons of the world. A lot of the big control system companies are
This is
called,
Atlona.
yeah, this is Atlona. They're a Panduit company. So if you're a datacom guy and you know Panduit, Panduit is known as the platinum standard for terminations, racks, and certified cabling for an IT infrastructure. I mean, they're just known as one of the top 3 global brands in use. What Atlona being backed by them is very important because it shows that they have a large company that stands behind them and helps facilitate their product development, their R&D, and of course it shows that they have a big backer for their longevity in the industry. A lot of people get nervous about that stuff.
So I just wanna take a side step for 1 second on this.
Mhm.
It's so critical to work with dealers that are there for you.
Yeah.
I experiment all the time, right? I buy excessive e-bikes, off-grid technology. I just bought some off-grid technology. The dealer I was dealing with was fabulous, cared, was there for you. You never forget that, Eric, right?
No, the experience is everything. I mean, it's one thing to be sold some gear, but what's the overall experience that you have at the end of the day when it's been, when it's been deployed?
Especially latest technology where you're not sure where it's going to land after you do your setup.
Exactly, and what we try to do is discourage those who want to set it up on their own and maybe just don't have the knowledge to do so. And that's why companies like I was just showing in Lona, they're building control systems for room scheduling and device management and turning things on and off and changing sources and switching, all with the user configuration, user interface that's more configuration based.
Mm-hmm.
So lot less line code, more configuration based, and that seems to be very appealing for our customer base.
Are these installed software or cloud-based? What do you see right now?
They have a virtual setting too in the cloud for management. So if you have a large amount of conferencing spaces or a large amount of rooms that are being controlled, they do have a virtual server that allows you to be able to tap into that and monitor large deployments. So most AV manufacturers, anybody that's involved in that can be involved in large deployments, typically has a cloud service that's part of their offering.
Part of their offering. So, okay, so you go to the show, you're not looking at products all day. What's the show like? What's 1 or 2 days like at these shows?
This would be my synopsis of the show.
Okay.
You show up in the morning and you get ready to have some fun. So the first thing you do is you would register. So you go to the e4experience.com. You'd go to New York Metro. If you happen to be in the New York Metro area, you'd hit Learn More, and you register the event when you hit Register Now, and it shows you a little bit about.
Wow.
There you go. So you can go and see the attendees, the registration record. What you would do is you're going to show up for a complimentary breakfast. So typically we tell people get there at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. We have breakfast for an hour. It's entirely free, as well as your attendance is covered. It's completely free. We host this event at no cost to you. And what you do is you stay for the keynote. And the keynote will cover some of the major developments that are occurring and then also incorporate some predictions for the future and the way this technology is going to be rolled out. After the
Now,
keynote,
are there breakout rooms to get the credits, or is the
Yes.
keynote? Oh, okay.
Yes,
okay.
so
Sorry
there are
about that. I thought it
no,
was
that's
a
fine.
whole
There are
thing.
scheduled sessions throughout the day that allow integrators to have their technicians up their certifications by gaining credits. It's very valuable. Anybody who's in Pro AV knows the value of a CTS and how every 3 years you have to renew it. These RUs are very important because your technicians and your field guys and engineers don't always have the time to pursue this stuff online in the online coursework.
And get themselves up to date.
Yeah, self-educate, but it's important. So we have sessions that will have real information from real industry experts. Even guys like we have on our own staff that are, corporate trainers and designers that will have some of these sessions in place. They're fantastic. So after that keynote, the exhibit hall opens at 10 a.m. At 10 a.m., you see a massive rush from hundreds of different resellers, integrators, and dealers that want to see the latest and greatest. And some of them have an idea of where they want to go. Some of them know that they see some of the major display brands like Samsung and LG, Sharp, NEC, ViewSonic. Those are just a few to name, but there's well over a dozen. And each one of them is bringing their latest and greatest and their innovative products out there. So you get a chance to see it firsthand without having to go to a website, without having to go find a manufacturer's demo room that exists in a location that may not be close to your office or your business. And you can come to a centralized event and you can see over 60 vendors showing their stuff. This is important. I mean, they even have a curated session where our keynote speaker will bring you around the room if you're able to get in one of those lucky slots, and he'll actually bring you to the most important
Like a
parts.
concierge to walk the show with you.
That's exactly right.
Wow, cool.
So, and then of course, while
You know what?
you're gonna get
I
hungry,
need
right?
that because I know what happens to me. I get distracted. I answer the phone. I miss an aisle. Imagine going in a sequence. That's fantastic. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, and then well, of course, I mean, after checking out all that technology, you're gonna get hungry. Let's guess what? Not only is breakfast free, and it's actually really nice, but we also have a full lunch for you as well, complimentary, everything you'd need: drinks, lunch, dessert, and then you're ready to take on some classes, and you can continue to go to the show until 3 p.m.
Nice.
So you can
Okay.
pop in at any time. We encourage you to stay for the whole day because when you go into the event, take some of those classes, learn a little bit. I think one of the biggest, most important facets of the E4 is the education component. You know, exhibiting hardware is also one of the biggest, but I also find the education, you learn a lot, and you can ask any question you want to these manufacturers to learn how these things are set up. That's a big question. Is like, yeah, I want to buy this equipment. Yeah, I want to deploy a solution, but can I pull it off? And then when you have a manufacturer there who has a successful demo sitting on a table and can show you behind the scene how everything's wired up and tell you everything you would need to pull it off successfully, that's
So-
a huge boost in confidence.
I'm having a realization, and I want to ask you if this makes sense. So, is it sensible that an IT managed service or an IT service company could engage you guys, maybe have you do the first one or two installs, and then we could learn how to do it ourselves, and you're okay with that?
Absolutely. It's a process of learning, you know, when you're first dipping your toe into a new technology.
We don't have to be tied to your engineers, but you'll help us get going and train us.
No, you want to be on site while the field engineers and the commissioning, you know, technicians are there, and anybody, watch them, learn from them. Even the manufacturers will show up too sometimes. If you have a specific deployment, some manufacturers, because remember I mentioned the intricacies involved in DD-LED, it's not just proper site planning and setting it up for a safe, you know, mount in a location that's not going to become dangerous, but also the electrical and the heat, the thermal dissipation. You're going to want somebody who's going to have experience doing that before. Almost every manufacturer that's in that space will provide a team or individual, a field engineer, who will run you through the process and teach you how to do it. And that's, I mean, we've all heard it before. You give a man a fish, he eats for a day. You teach him to fish, he eats for a lifetime. One installation or two installations is not a bad idea to throw it over the fence and have a third party step in and show it and show you exactly how to do it. And then, of course, the manufacturer has a wealth of resources and engineers, and sometimes they make it mandatory, because if they know that you're not certified in deploying their product, it's also a representation of their brand. If it doesn't go out,
They want you to fully train, so you deploy properly. There's no questions,
Yep.
and everybody's happy with the brand because you know, oh, that Dell computer stinks. You hear,
Yep.
but it was the setup that wasn't done correctly.
100%. If it's not done right, it's a poor reflection not only on the integrator, but the display manufacturer or whatever technology is being used. So again, it's in everybody's best interest to not only use somebody who's experienced in it, but tap into those resources with the with manufacturers and different vendors. Talk about the E4 in Phoenix that we're hosting in October. On October 18th, we're going down to the Southwest. I've toyed around with the idea of doing an unboxing on your show and
Awesome.
showing how these things come out. And if you truly want me to do that, I'll bring a bunch of toys next time, and we can go through that and show you exactly what you're getting into when you unbox one of these great products from several of the manufacturers that I mentioned.
Well, I'll tell you why, because I think that I'm pretty good at unboxing, and I think, we generally simplify technology, and the show's about life and tech and how everyone's affected. I'd love to do an unboxing of something that everybody would be excited about hearing about.
Yeah, and I think it would give a lot of credibility to when I say that some of these solutions are rather simple when you think about it, and you'll also be able to see the form factor. So if you were second guessing, hey, do I really want to use this product? Is it too big or too small? I could show you some really cool stuff. So I probably should have brought a couple of little signage players to show you, because that seems to be a great thing.
Signage players is the key thing. Talk why signage players.
Because digital signage has been a growing trend in the industry for quite some time, and signage players are something that's like a solid state type player that'll either pull the content from a cloud, or will have content that's loaded from, say, a static image or video that's loaded on like a storage memory or storage that's inside the unit. These devices are primarily networked, so sure, you can have standalone ones sitting behind a display, but a lot of them will get their updated content because they're part of a network. And they're very important when you think about the IT integration. It's a great it's a great first step into AV for any IT company, and it's real simple. I mean, you're already there in the space doing the wiring, the network, the rack space, setting up the phone systems, datacom. Why not offer the digital signage for their lobby and a display or a DV LED wall to go with it?
Doesn't the fear or the risk increase, especially for these kind of video walls and commercial products, that if they exist in the network, cybersecurity or hacking could take place? What's your thoughts on that?
So we did touch a little bit in the past, but again, not everybody's seen the previous shows. Security is like paramount. Like, everybody in Pro AV is very aware that you do not want to introduce an AV solution to your customer's environment and have that potentially be a vulnerability or an opening into their network. So, as a general rule of thumb, we are typically never really going to ride on the same network as the core network. We're going to ride parallel. So what we do is we build parallel networks, and we use a really common manufacturer that a lot of people know about is Netgear.
Okay.
Maybe they don't actually know, but Netgear is the predominant player in Pro AV.
We pulled up the website. You want to describe what you're showing here?
Yeah, I was actually showing their new lineup of M4350 switches. These are their new multi-gig switches, and yeah, sure. These are their new multi-gig switches for AV over IP deployments and for IT, so they're just as applicable for core network as well as for edge and deployment for AV over IP. But they make multi-gig, meaning that the ports can support 1, 2.5, 5, or 10 gig on some models. They have modular PoE, so you can expand the network, or you can expand the power, the total power budget for more devices if you have high consuming power devices. You can also, it's a managed network layer 3 switch, and they have a few models that just recently came out that we were never able to offer before, was TAA compliance.
TAA compliance. Go into that a little bit.
TAA compliance, really simply, is the Trade Agreement Act, and what it is that it makes it the product that's TAA compliant typically falls under the municipal and government projects. These are projects that usually call for TAA compliant hardware because it's developed by countries that are very friendly to the US and do not have security concerns. So it's a lot of these manufacturers are pushing for compliance because they want to be involved in these spaces, and were typically barred from it because they had manufactured their equipment outside of TAA compliant countries.
So that's very strong that you guys have an eye on that. Because I assume that as AV equipment from traditionally have been on the network, the security parts haven't been worked out. And I'm seeing that more and more. And you guys really have a focus on making sure that once that integration happens on the network, security is not going to be a problem.
Yeah, if you ride the network parallel and to the existing core network or the existing corporate network, you're never going to really cross packets. So there's going to be no commingling of data, and especially with audio and video, or video particularly, is very large packet. I mean, on an uncompressed video can require 10 gigabit. And try pushing that on the same network that's also doing voice over IP, maybe some surveillance, and then of course corporate data. Just the fact that it's sensitive data is enough to say we're going to completely ride separately the AV network. We're not going to commingle, and it proves to be safer for now. And of course, the AV hardware companies realize too that they got to keep their hardware patched up to date so that those don't become vulnerabilities when they have access to the internet.
Now, you know, as a network expert, I would assume that VLANing this or putting it as a separate network with its own IP schema would be natural for any installation of this.
Yeah. In fact, the M4250, which is Netgear's original their AV line. This is what really kind of commanded their space, and this is what really everybody has been paying attention to, because most video over network was 1 gigabit networks, because not everybody, you know, it was cost prohibitive to do 10 gigabit networks, and hardware was expensive. Now that prices have been driven down, this was their signature access to this. And what this does is they not only make the switch with the ability to have ports in the front or back, so whether the rack space is for an AV rack or an IT rack, it is very particular. But what it also does is it has a custom AV graphical user interface. So if you're not an IT guy and you don't want to know how to program a switch through CLI or through some of the basic GUI, you can activate the AV GUI, which will automatically set up VLANs and allow you to tag the ports for either control, audio, video, and all put them on separate VLANs so that the traffic is prioritized and protected.
As an expert, can you describe to us, because even as having done both, it's not so clear. What's the difference between a data rack and an AV rack?
Okay, so an AV rack, just for, you know, I won't say every AV rack, but the majority of them have lights on the front, ports on the rear. Whereas an IT rack has ports in the front and has, you know, and all your cabling is done through the front access. These switches are actually reversible. So if you have an IT rack or an AV rack, you can simply reverse the rack mount ears, and then you now have the ability to put ports wherever you need.
Why is that more than just a cosmetic alteration? Because that's not just about cosmetic.
Well, a lot of it has to do with like you said, the aesthetics of a rack is important. I mean, an AV rack that's poorly wired and gears is racked in there that's doesn't, you know, it doesn't look right. It's a reflection on the integrator and their cleanliness, and unfortunately, it has a lot to do with aesthetics. But it also has to do with the ability to, with your infrastructure, how you cabled everything out. So
I assume maintenance would be much faster if changes or maintenance was needed if you could wire it up right without having to run extra wires because you don't have the right setup.
Exactly. So when everything looks uniform, so if you're building an AV rack, almost everything has all the buttons, knobs, and the front plate of the hardware. It only makes sense to have the network switch have the same. It just has all the ports with the PoE lights and everything like that. But you know, in an IT space, it's important to have the cabling in the front because that's the way it's wired properly. You would not want to have to spend money and have to rewire your rack just to accommodate a switch.
Now, I've wired a bunch of racks. You know, you have to have that experience to really appreciate what we're talking about.
Oh yeah.
Because it could take days and sometimes weeks to get it look really pretty, right?
Neatness
But
counts.
when you walk into a data center and you see the AV equipment, well, and the network, and everything's wired up and harnessed properly, it just makes you smile. You're like, Because I have pictures I could share with everybody of some data centers that are absolute disasters. Now, good luck finding a maintenance guy at a reasonable cost to have to deal with that.
Absolutely. Infrastructure cabling is a very expensive endeavor to take on when you have to redo it. And we've all seen some rat's nests when it came to going into an IT closet or an AV closet and looking at the rack space. So remember, it's, you know, impressions are everything. It's the aesthetics of the rack as well as the impression of the cleanliness of how it's done. And a lot of us in the industry who've been in IT and AV can appreciate when we walk into a room and we see, like you said, it gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling that everything is done right.
Yeah, what a difference. Guys, thank you for hearing our chatter today. Eric, you are amazing. Thank you for allowing me to come to the show next week. I'm
Oh.
excited to see all the gear and do that. And it's not too far away in the New York region, so that's really exciting. You know, I leave my credit card at home, and I won't tell my guys at the office I'm going in case I buy a lot of stuff. So,
Yeah.
but thank you. Take us out talking about the show, and let's pull that up again. And
Sure.
thank you, everybody. CyberMasters is going to be back online with other experts talking about life and tech, specifically this show, how our technology is booming and integrating, and what exciting events to go to. So there it is, the E4 experience.
At the New York, it's the New York Metro. We do this once every 2 years. We pick different regions. Come September 20th on Wednesday next week, if you can make it. I just want to say
What's the date exactly?
Wednesday, September 20th.
Wednesday, September 20th.
And you can come at any time during the day, between 7:30, 8 o'clock a.m. up until 3 p.m. when the exhibit hall closes. It's all free, and we would love to have you there and show you and roll out the red carpet and show you the experience. What I'm going to say is, Ed, thank you for having me on the show yet again, and thank you for letting me entice you into actually attending one of our major our award-winning industry events.
We'll have so much more to talk about, and hopefully we'll play some gear on the next round. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.